And good evening, folks. With me here is Scott Wenz, and I'd like to start off by finding out about the neighborhoods and about things that are on people's minds. Scott, was that St. Francis we're going to start with?
Yeah, I thought it would be a good idea to start with the St. Francis traffic program that is so roundly hated by the majority of people that are up there. It's been one of those very sad things where the neighborhoods have, in fact, neighbors in the neighborhood have in fact said they do not want it in an overwhelming majority. And the city council and the traffic staff has said, we don't care what you want to do, we are going to go ahead and do this anyway. The Streets Are Us petition that was run about 2 years ago, in 16 hours, collected the same number of signatures, not the same number, but a little bit more than the city of Santa Barbara collected in 2.5 years. It took the city of Santa Barbara 2.5 years and 2 different attempts to get those signatures to go ahead with the program. It took Streets Are Us exactly 16 hours standing on street corners collecting them.
Yeah, I see a certain asymmetry there. Now, I'm not sure how many people have driven through any of these mini roundabouts, but I have, and first they got us used to them, if you call it that, with sort of hay bales and with signs that showed us how this was going to go. And it even had a phone number that said who to contact, which I think is pretty good because ordinarily I can't tell who to contact for anything. And I called the number and said, apparently you're getting ready to do something like that. You're going to put these mini roundabouts in. For God's sake, don't do it. As you can see, if you've driven the streets, it didn't help, but I was very sincere. And I assume that's what the residents are saying now, for God's sake, don't do it?
Well, not only are the residents saying that, but for instance, one of the situations that the city did is they said, we're going to put in bulb outs. And these bulb outs are going to be wonderful because it's going to make it easier for people to cross streets. Well, in fact, it hasn't changed the distance any. The distance is still the same from sidewalk to sidewalk. But what the bulb outs do is they cause traffic to make a turn and go out towards the middle of the street. Now, what's the problem with that? Well, the fire department said we don't want bulb outs on the streets because our large tanker trucks have to come around there, and if they see a car coming on, they have to have that leeway to the right or to the left to be able to take a tighter turn into the street, and the bulb out doesn't allow that. And the other thing is that the bulb outs also create problems with the suspensions on the fire trucks. If the fire trucks hit those, these trucks are designed for urban streets, not for rural back areas where there's a lot of bouncing going around. It'll break the suspensions and beat up the baffles in the trucks.
I'm looking at those as a serious hazard for bicyclists.
Of course, yeah.
When you push the curb out, then that must mean that a bicyclist has to come out into the traffic lane. Isn't that kind of the opposite of every place I see people wanting to paint in bike lanes for the convenience of bicyclists? This must be the opposite of that if it shoves the bicyclist into the traffic.
It not only does it shove it out into them out into the traffic, but this is a designated design implementation by Drusilla Van Hingel, Alternative Transportation Coordinator and Mobility Transportation Coordinator for the City of Santa Barbara. She said specifically, we want the bicyclists into the streets because the bicyclists will then slow traffic. Well, I don't know about you, but a 160-pound person on a 20-pound bike versus a 2-ton automobile is not a good match.
Well, yeah, we don't want them to meet.
That's right.
So I understand if she thinks that, and it's probably the thinking generally, that if these bicycles are shoved out into the area of the car will slow down, and I guess someone wants the cars to slow down. I always thought that policemen giving tickets was pretty good for that. But it seems to me that the bicyclist is cannon fodder.
Yes, that's exactly what they're doing. They're using the bicyclists as cannon fodder to slow down automobiles. And the state of California specifically states in their traffic code that if you cannot keep pace with the fast or the average pace of the traffic on a street, you must drive to the right, and that includes bicyclists. So if a bicyclist is out there and cannot match the 20 to 25 miles an hour, now I ride my bike 50, 70 miles a week every single week that I can. And I average between 10 to 12 miles an hour on my bicycle.
Right.
Now that is approximately 50% under what the average car does. So that means by law I am required to drive to the right, and the bulb out shoves me out right into the middle of the traffic.
Yeah, a scary situation.
Very much so.
Have we seen any figures, or is there anything yet as far as the mishaps that I'm assuming will be coming? If this goes on for a while, the mishaps are in the pipe for us.
Well, let's take the largest two roundabouts the city of Santa Barbara has. The 5 Points roundabout, which is over on APS and Salinas, is a disaster. It has been written up in the National American Journal of Health as where not to put a roundabout. It causes problems. A friend of mine who's a former police lieutenant here in the city of Santa Barbara says he's had more near accidents on that street because of that roundabout than any other street in town. Now, if you're going to go over to Melpa Street, we were guaranteed by none other than people like Grant House, who's now a city councilman, and people like Roger Horton, that these types of things would be wonderful. Well, guess what? They're not working. And the reason they're not working is because the accident rates are skyrocketed at the intersection. And the promised reduction in the congestion on the street, so we would not have backups at that intersection at rush hour, has not materialized. Now, here's one of the problems. The city of Santa Barbara's official statistics say they were averaging around 6 accidents a year at the intersection of Carpinteria and Milpas before the roundabout was built. In 2003, they had 13 accidents, and last year they averaged 17 accidents on that roundabout. And by per miles driven, according to the state of California, that gives that roundabout and that intersection a rating of 1. Anything at 1 or greater is considered to be a level F to D.
And that would be like on a report card.
That's a report
where
card.
F to D is not good.
That's correct. That's correct. So now we have the 2 largest roundabouts. So let's go down to these smaller ones. Now you have a situation where on Valerio and Olive they had to take the roundabout out because of 2 major accidents, and one of which was caused by a rollover.
Ooh.
So you had people that were intentionally hurt by a design, and we pulled the police report, and the police report specifically states in it, there's no ambiguity about it. If it had not been for the design of the intersection, these accidents would not have occurred.
I guess I have to be thrilled that even one has been pulled out when it was glaringly wrong.
Well, then
I don't learn to speak English, by the way, but sometimes
there's another issue having to do with these hazards on the street. These are obstructions on the city streets.
Yes.
They interfere with emergency response. They interfere with fire, they interfere with police, and they interfere with ambulance response. Now, let's suppose we have a firestorm like we had with the one that was just over the hill in Santa Ynez. Let's say that came over the hill like it did over Sycamore Canyon, came down over the Riviera.
You don't think we want to reduce the throughput of the streets?
Yeah, well, it would be nice to have that. The problem is that you get mutual aid. Well, mutual aid means that you have people coming in from Ventura, Ojai, different locations. They're not familiar with the streets. They have maps showing these things. But if it's in the middle of the night and you have smoke coming down, it's thick smoke, they're going to be racing down a street trying to get to a house or trying to get to a recovery of some sort. They're not going to be able to see those roundabouts until the very end.
They're going to thump through them.
They're going to thump through them, and they're going to destroy vehicles.
What does the roundabout do for pedestrians?
It's